I have brought a new series. Subscribe this YouTube channel. I have brought a new series. Answers are not model answers. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Hello friends. Happy UPSC to you. Here I am with series on Inside IAS Secure. It's compilation of GS paper 2 from January to August. I have compiled all the keywords of Inside Secure together. It will help you revise Inside Secure. Please subscribe. Table of contents. Discuss the constitutional provisions available for the Finance Commission of India and explain its significance. Also, examine the major recommendations of the recently released interim report of the 15th Finance Commission, 250 words. What is the purpose of a protest? Explain the significance of the right to protest in a democracy. Illustrate with cases specific to Indian context, 250 words. Discuss the merits and cost of involving children in protests and political actions while bringing out the constitutional provisions associated with the same in our country. 250 words. The latest National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, data suggest that sedition law remains as relevant as ever, with sedition arrests increasing in recent years. Critically analyze, 250 words. The excerpt from Mahatma Gandhi's book, Hind Swaraj, Real Rights Are a Result of the Performance of Duty, appears obsolete in the contemporary constitutional stage of development. Do you agree? Discuss. 250 words. No democracy can long survive which does not accept as fundamental to its very existence the recognition of the rights of minorities. Critically analyze the relevance of the statement applied to current happenings in the capital. 250 words. In the Indian polity, states cannot be reduced to mere administrative agencies delegated with enforcing parliamentary laws without any application of mind. Critically analyze. 250 words. On several occasions, the Speaker's role has been questioned on the allegation of bias, and the office has been criticized for being an agent of pernicious partisan politics. Critically comment. 250 words. What is a privilege motion? Discuss the rules related to it and the authority of the Speaker/Chairperson vis-a-vis privilege motion. 250 words. Judicial impartiality is a significant element of justice. Elucidate in the backdrop of recusal made recently by Justice Mohan M. Shantanagoudar, Supreme Court Judge. 250 words. Do you agree with the view that Collegium system requires reconsideration? Give reasons in support of your arguments. 250 words. Without the requisite rules, regulations, and machinery in place, it is not surprising that the UPSC has failed to meet expectations. Critically analyze the statement with respect to the functioning of UPSC in India. 250 words. Subscribe this YouTube channel. There is a need of more innovative reforms to ensure internal democracy, financial accountability in political parties. In the light of the above statement, critically analyze the steps taken by the government on electoral reforms. 250 words. Discuss the provisions available to resolve the problem of criminalization of politics in India and also suggest steps that need to be taken to address it more effectively. 250 words. With electoral process in India is becoming increasingly advanced in terms of use of data, there is a need for a data protection framework to uphold the voters' informational autonomy. Elucidate. 250 words. The Election Commission of India's ECI, new instrument to allow digitally mediated voting may prove to be a revolution in electoral reforms. Do you agree? Analyze. 250 words. Discuss the key features of National Mission on Quantum Technologies and Applications, NCTA. 250 words. Bring out the key highlights of the draft national logistic policy. Analyze the benefits and challenges involved in implementing the same. 250 words. Discuss the suggestions given in the Economic Survey 2022. Boost India's economic growth. 250 words. There was hope that the recently proposed budget would increase allocations in various sectors, and in turn would trigger demand, but the numbers do not seem promising. Give your opinion and analyze. 250 words. Considering the manner in which public data are being stored and used by both the state and private entities, a comprehensive data protection act is the need of the hour. Comment. 250 words. India needs more podiums like the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition to democratize innovation for ideas with great prospective societal impact. Comment. 250 words. Swachh Bharat mission apart from sanitation aspects aids to generate employment and provide impetus to the rural economy. Explain. 250 words. The Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Bill is a much needed complement to Surrogacy Bill. Elucidate. 250 words. Balanced use of fertilizers based on soil testing on a mission mode is creating a quiet revolution. Analyze in the context of Soil Health Card Program. 250 words. Amidst the newly signed Bodo Agreement, there is a need to ensure that a Bodo solution does not create a non-Bodo problem. Analyze. 250 words. Discuss the impact of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, IBC, on loan recovery and also suggest remedial measures for better implementation of the code. 250 words. Discuss the idea of Central Consumer Protection Authority, CCPA. In what way will it protect the rights of the consumer in the country? 250 words. What are technical textiles? Discuss the initiatives of government in this direction with special focus on National Technical Textile Mission. 250 words. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Do you think privatization of health and education sectors in India can bring transformational shift in the current social indicators? Examine with suitable cases. 250 words. Should the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes community have reservations in promotions? Critically examine. 250 words. Has the concept of Aadhaar succeeded as a game changer for India's leaky welfare regime? Analyze. 250 words. Discuss whether the recurrent viral outbreaks can be termed as man-made disasters. Illustrate. With the case of corona outbreak. 250 words. Along with value-added administration, the education system needs a revamp to address India's human capital crisis effectively. Deliberate. 250 words. The evolution of the widely practiced Unani system of medicine has been as a syncretic Science, under such pretext explain in what way practicing such systems of medicines can lead to sustainable and effective healthcare in the country. 250 words. India is often labeled as the pharmacy of the world, but with reliance on API imports from China running to well over 60% for most drugs, India's claim to be a world leader in pharmaceuticals is heavily compromised. Analyze what should India do to overcome such dependencies and maintain its position in the pharma industry. 250 words. Discuss the key components of the Delhi model of education. Explain how it has successfully tried to bridge the gaps between the education for masses and that for the classes. 250 words. Do you consider that the medical termination of pregnancy bill doesn't do enough to safeguard women's choices and interests in the country? Critically analyze. 250 words. What are orphan diseases? Discuss the challenges involved in the treatment of such diseases. Explain in the context of India whether the state should be responsible for such treatments. 250 words. Corruption deepens inequalities and increases poverty and obstructs the growth prospects of the nation. Comment. 250 words. The auditing profession plays a vital role in maintaining the integrity of the Indian capital markets, but recent audit failures are renewing doubts about whether the country's largest accounting firms are truly serving the public interest. Critically examine and suggest measures to overcome the challenges. 250 words. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Discuss the indispensability of a strong relation between India and Sri Lanka. 250 words. Do you think India's desire to diversify its defense imports watched India-Russia relations in recent past? Examine. 250 words. Despite the unsolved tension between Israelis and Palestinians, the defining war is a broader struggle among multiple players seeking regional hegemony. Thus, is it right to say that New West Asia today is rife with small state, non-state actors pitted against each other? Analyze. 250 words. Discuss the historical and current engagements of India with Africa. Why is Africa important for India? 250 words. What is Blue Dot Network? How will it benefit India amidst evolving Indo-Pacific strategies of the US? Discuss. 250 words. While both India and the U.S. sit together for bilaterals, the Pakistan factor may continue to be an irritant in the larger scheme of the strategic partnership. Discuss what the challenges before India are and suggest solutions. 250 words. Will Trump's peace plan help resolve Israel-Palestine crisis? Discuss the possibilities and suggest way forward. 250 words. At the moment, India is one of the few countries which have major interest in international seaborne trade. In the backdrop of such a situation, critically examine the role played by India in the International Maritime Organization, IMO. 250 words. The United States Trade Representatives, USTR, has updated its list of developing and least developed countries, removing India from the list of countries that are designated as developing. What does this indicate for India? Discuss and elaborate on the pros and cons. 250 words. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Indian Constitution historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendments, significant provisions and basic structure. Discuss the constitutional provisions available for the Finance Commission of India and explain its significance. Also, examine the major recommendations of the recently released interim report of the 15th Finance Commission. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? The report of the 15th Finance Commission headed by N.K. Singh was tabled in Parliament. Thus the context of the question. Key demand of the question. The question is straightforward and aims to note upon Finance Commission and the recently released interim report. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Examine. When asked to examine, we must look into the topic, content words, in detail, inspect it, investigate it and establish the key facts and issues related to the topic in question. While doing so, we should explain why these facts and issues are important and their implications. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the constitutional provisions of FC. Body. Start by explaining the working and purpose of the FC. The Finance Commission is a body set up under Article 280 of the Constitution, primarily to recommend measures and methods on how revenues, which the government earns through various taxes, need to be distributed between the center and the states. Discuss the related provisions of it in detail. Bring out the highlights of interim report of 15th FC. Conclusion. Conclude by relevance of the released interim report of the 15th Finance Commission. Introduction. Finance Commission. Article 280, Constitutional Provisions of Finance Commission India. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Constitutional Provisions of Finance Commission India. The Finance Commission shall entail recommendations to the President of India on major recommendations of the recently released interim report of the 15th Finance Commission. State-wise distribution. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Grants in aid. Revenue deficit grants. Special grants, sector-specific grants. Disaster risk management. Grants to local bodies, recommendations on fiscal roadmap. Fiscal deficit and debt levels. Off-budget borrowings. Statutory framework for public financial management. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Tax capacity. Financing of security-related expenditure. How revenue has been divided. Criticisms. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. What is the purpose of a protest? Explain the significance of the right to protest in a democracy. Illustrate with cases specific to Indian context. 250 words. Reference, India Today. Introduction. Purpose of a protest. Right to protest. The significance of the right to protest in a democracy. Convinced that protests constitute a fundamental, recalling that protests occur in all societies, as people stand up for their civil, political, economic, cultural, and social rights, struggle against repression, bearing in mind that participating in protests enables all people to individually and collectively express dissent. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Highlighting that the right to protest embodies the exercise of a number of indivisible, emphasizing the invaluable role of civil society. Expressing our abhorrence at brutal repression against many protests. Deeply concerned by legal, policy and law enforcement, cognizant that the development of surveillance, desiring to demand that governments. Examples of successful protests. Nirbhaya Movement, 2012. Anti-corruption movement by Anna Hazra, 2011. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Discuss the merits and costs of involving children in protests and political actions while bringing out the constitutional provisions associated with the same in our country. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? The question is in the background of recent Supreme Court's move to take suo motu cognizance of children taking part in demonstrations in Shaheen Bagh in Delhi. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the merits and costs of involving children in protests and political actions, and discuss the constitutional provisions associated with it. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain what constitutes the right to protest and what are the constitutional provisions associated with it in the country. Body. List down the basic provisions associated with the right to protest in the country. Explain significance of Article 19, Right to Protest, United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, CRC, etc. Then, move on to discuss in what way questions have emerged whether it is responsible parenting to protect children from these issues or to involve children in the middle of a protest that involves police action and could become volatile. Take hints from the article and present your opinion with suitable justifications. Conclusion. Take a fair and balanced approach and conclude with a middle path that strikes balance between right to protest and protection of children in such incidences. Introduction. Body. Merits involved in children in protests and political actions. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Costs involved in children in protests and political actions. Health, detention, education, psychology, way forward. The latest National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, data suggests that sedition law remains as relevant as ever with sedition arrests increasing in recent years. Critically. Analyze, 250 words. Reference, Live Mint. Why this question? Subscribe this YouTube channel. The National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, though, has only been collecting separate data on sedition cases since 2014. In 2014, there were 47 cases of sedition, but that number increased to 70 in 2018, the latest year with available data. Thus the question. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the relevance of such alarming data and need to analyze the sedition law and the concerns associated with it. Directive. Critically analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. When critically is suffixed or prefixed to a directive, one needs to look at the good and bad of the topic and give a fair judgment. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Present the case of sedition in India. Compared to other offenses, sedition remains a rare crime. It accounts for less than 0.01% of all IPC crimes. But within India, some parts are emerging as sedition hotspots. Body. Discuss what constitutes sedition. Explain the role played by sedition law historically. Sedition, which falls under Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code, is defined as any action that brings or attempts to bring hatred or contempt towards the government of India. Critically examine the need of such laws and changes desired to address the challenge of sedition often being witnessed in the country. Conclusion. Thought the need to retain the provision of sedition to effectively combat anti-national, secessionist, and terrorist elements is necessary. It's time to relook and evolve newer strategies to tackle the challenge of sedition in newer and better ways. Introduction. Body. NCRB data statistics. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Dark side of sedition law. Why sedition law must be stripped off. The recent order of a Bihar court directing the filing of infer against 49 eminent persons who signed an open letter to the Prime Minister expressing concerns over mob lynching is shocking, disappointing, and completely disregards the true meaning of the law. Dissent is the lifeblood of democracy. Disaffection and contempt. Anti-national. Way forward. All speech-related offenses should be made bailable offenses. Chilling effect on freedom of speech and expression. Subscribe this YouTube channel. The offenses should be made non-cognizable. To obtain prior sanction of the government before taking cognizance of the offenses, raise the burden of proof on those who claim that their sentiments are heard rather than accept them at face value. Take action against those who bring malicious complaints against speech acts. Conclusion. The excerpt from Mahatma Gandhi's book Hind Swaraj, Real Rights Are a Result of the Performance of Duty appears obsolete in the contemporary constitutional stage of development. Do you agree? Discuss. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? In the recently held International Judicial Conference 2020, the Chief Justice of India drew attention to the Constitution's Fundamental Duties chapter and stressed on the importance of citizens' duties by citing Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, which quotes that real rights are a result of the performance of duty. Thus the question. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the relevance/obsoleteness of the quote made by Mahatma Gandhi to the contemporary times of the constitutional evolvement. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the meaning of the excerpt. Real rights are a result of the performance of duty. Body. The author of the article states that though on the outset the interrelationship between duties and rights may seem reasonable, the merging of the ideas of rights and duties ought to be resisted. The author in the given article makes several arguments to justify his stand. One can use these justifications to argue for the question and substantiate. Discuss in what way to a major extent it's the rights that prevail over duties in the present times. Take cues from the article to form a fair and balanced stand. Conclusion. Conclude that while determining the precedence of duties or rights it is very important to consider the position of the individual in the constitutional scheme of things and the Constitution's commitment to combating hierarchy, and that it's time to rephrase the quote, the real duties are the Result of the fulfillment of rights. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Introduction. Body. Real rights are a result of the performance of duty appears obsolete. But rights and duties go hand in hand. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Functions and responsibilities of the Union and the states, issues and challenges. Pertaining to the federal structure, devolution of powers and finances up to local levels and challenges therein. No democracy can long survive which does not accept as fundamental to its very existence the recognition of the rights of minorities. Critically analyze the relevance of the statement applied to current happenings in the capital, 250 words. Reference, Indian Express. Why this question? The author of the article highlights the events in Delhi that have taken a high toll recently, and he urges that apex court and government must act urgently to restore confidence and ensure that minority rights do not remain on paper. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the inherent implications of the statement of the question and its essence to the ongoing turmoil in Delhi. Directive. Critically analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. When critically is suffixed or prefixed to a directive, one needs to look at the good and bad of the topic and give a fair judgment. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the basic background of the quote applied to the case of Delhi riots. Body. Discuss the context of the question. In short, more than 30 people have lost their lives in the violence. In Delhi, houses have been torched and an entire market set on fire. Discuss incidences in the past and the lacunae in the systems that have led to such situations. Explain why there is the turmoil. What are the implications of it? Take hints from the article and explain what Constitution says about. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Protection of minority rights. Explain the role that the government and judiciary must play to ensure preservation of democracy. Conclusion. Conclude that there is an urgent need to preserve and protect the rights of minorities to ensure the health, vitality, and strength of the Free State of India. Introduction. Body. Importance of recognition of rights of minorities. Constitution and protection of minority rights. Role that the government and judiciary must play to ensure preservation of democracy. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Usted. Hamari Darohar, Quasigarab Nawa Senior Secondary School. Nai Manzil. Nai Roshni, Minority Cybergram. Way forward. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Parliament and state legislatures, structure, functioning, conduct of business. Powers and privileges and issues arising out of these. In the Indian polity, states cannot be reduced to mere administrative agencies, delegated with enforcing parliamentary laws without any application of mind. Critically. Analyze. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? The article discusses that as of January 28, the chief ministers of at least 11 states have expressed their unwillingness to implement the National Register of Citizens, NRC. Thus the question ponders to evaluate the relationship between center and states and the federal character of the Indian polity. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the significance of evolving new measures to foster cooperation between union and state government on crucial constitutional issues. Directive. Critically analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. When critically is suffixed or prefixed to a directive, one needs to look at the good and bad of the topic and give a fair judgment. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Give a brief introduction about the recent events that affected the state's will in implementing union laws. Body. Discuss about the relevant constitutional provisions in this regard. State the pros and cons of implementing parliament laws by states uniformly. Suggest a suitable way forward. Conclusion. Conclude that new measures should be evolved to foster cooperation between union and state government on crucial constitutional issues. Introduction. Article 256, Article 365. State, implement. Central. Body. Provisions that favor the union government. Article 355. Example. Article 356 not a dead letter. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Centrally sponsored schemes. Enforcement of international treaties and agreements. Article 200. Article 256. However, states are not mere administrative agencies. Legislative/administrative. Separation of power, Schedule 7. Article 131, exclusive jurisdiction. E.g., Chhattisgarh moved SC against NIA Act in January 2020. Coalition governments. Financial. GST Council. 10 THFC. 14 THFC, 42%. Other areas. NITIIG. Sabka Soft Sabka Vikas. Competitive, cooperative. Measures needed. Strengthening of interstate council. Autonomy to states. Democratic decentralization. Conclusion. Subscribe this YouTube channel. On several occasions, the speaker's role has been questioned on the allegation of bias, and the office has been criticized for being an agent of pernicious partisan politics. Critically comment. 250 words. Reference The Hindu. Introduction. Body. Role of the speaker. Conducts business in Lok Sabha. Criticism of speaker's role. Partisan politics. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Appointment and tenure. Time limit. E.g. Duration of disqualification. Referral to select committees. Conclusion. What is a privilege motion? Discuss the rules related to it and the authority of the speaker/chairperson vis-a-vis privilege motion. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? Recently, privilege motion was submitted by the Congress Party member against Social Justice Minister Gehlot for his statement on the Supreme Court order on the issue of reservation in promotion for the SCS/STS. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss what a privilege motion is, explain the rules related to it and the authority of the speaker/chairperson vis-a-vis privilege motion. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain what is a privilege motion. Parliamentary privileges are certain rights and immunities enjoyed by members of parliament, individually and collectively, so that they can effectively discharge their functions. When any of these rights and immunities are disregarded, the offense is called a breach of privilege and is punishable under law of Parliament. Body. The question is direct and covers the static portions of the GS Paper 2 syllabus. Thus there isn't much to deliberate. Discuss the rules governing a privilege motion in detail. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Conclude by reasserting the significance of such constitutional tools. Introduction. Body. Rules. Authority of Speaker. The Speaker/Chairperson refers the motion to a parliamentary committee. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Structure, organization, and functioning of the executive and the judiciary. Ministries and departments of the government, pressure groups and formal/informal associations and their role in the polity. Judicial impartiality is a significant element of justice, elucidate in the backdrop of recusal made recently by Justice Mohanam Shantanagoudar, Supreme Court Judge. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? Recently, Justice Mohanam Shantanagoudar, Supreme Court Judge, recused from hearing the petition filed by Sarah Abdullah Pilot, sister of former J&K Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, challenging his detention under the J&K Public Safety Act. Thus the question. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the need and importance of judicial impartiality and in what way it is a key element of justice. Directive. Elucidate, give a detailed account as to how and why it occurred, or what is the particular context. You must be defining key terms wherever appropriate, and substantiate with relevant associated facts. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain what you understand by judicial impartiality. Body. Discuss the recent incidents of recusal. In short, explain what recusal is and how it acts as a tool to be impartial in the judicial system. Explain various options/methods available in the Indian judiciary that aid a judge to remain impartial. Highlight case studies from past to present of key judgments that mark the pivot of impartiality in the Indian judiciary. Explain why impartiality is a key factor in judiciary. Conclusion. Conclude that judicial impartiality is a significant element of justice. Judges should decide legal disputes free of any personal bias or prejudice. As a result of a conflict of interest, a judge may be unable to maintain impartiality in a case and thus should be disqualified. Introduction. Judicial disqualification, recusal. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Body. Judicial impartiality. Rules of recusal. Supreme Court in the NJAC judgment, cases of presumed bias. Cases of apparent bias. Judicial impartiality is a significant element of justice. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Do you agree with the view that Collegium system requires reconsideration? Give reasons in support of your arguments. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? The question is premised upon the recent citing made by former Supreme Court Judge Justice A.K. Sikri upon the lacunae of the Collegium system in the Indian judiciary. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the factors that have made Collegium a flawed system. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain what Collegium system is. Body. Collegium system is the system by which the judges are appointed and transferred only by the judges. The system has evolved by means of the judgments of the Supreme Court, and not by an act of Parliament or by a constitutional provision. State the factors that make the Collegium system flawed. Autocratic nature of the system, accountableness, lack of transparency, promotes nepotism. Inefficient in many dimensions, etc. Conclusion. Conclude that the subjectivity and the inconsistency of the Collegium system highlight the need to relook at the process of appointment of judges. The NJAC should be amended to make sure that the judiciary retains independence in its decisions and reintroduced in some form or the other. Introduction. Body. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Need for reforms in the Collegium system. Credibility of the SC. Supreme Court is overburdened. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Reforms needed in the Collegium system. New memorandum of procedure. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Appointment to various constitutional posts, powers, functions and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. Statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies. Without the requisite rules, regulations, and machinery in place, it is not surprising that UPSC has failed to meet expectations. Critically analyze the statement with respect to the functioning of UPSC in India. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? More than 6 years after the UPSC law received the President's assent, the institution of UPSC is yet to play any significant role in tackling corruption in the country. Thus the background of the question. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the lacunae with respect to the ill functioning of the office of UPSC and suggest what needs to be done. Directive. Critically analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. When critically is suffixed or prefixed to a directive, one needs to look at the good and bad of the topic and give a fair judgment. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the background of the coming of the office of UPSC into existence. Body. A nationwide public campaign in 2011 demanding an independent anti-corruption ombudsman resulted in the passage of UPSC law in India. UPSC and Lokayukta Act, 2013 had been enacted to ensure a prompt and fair investigation and prosecution in cases of corruption against public servants. UPSC had been envisioned to be independent and was accorded a high stature and given extensive powers including the power to inquire, investigate, and prosecute acts of corruption. Then explain the concerns involved, delay in appointments, government's lack of intent, lack of independence of UPSC, etc. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Conclude by suggesting way ahead, recommend steps that need to be taken to overcome the challenge. Background. UPSC and Lokayukta Act, 2013. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Functioning of UPSC in India. The other issues associated. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Way forward. Conclusion. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Salient features of the Representation of Peoples Act. There is a need of more innovative reforms to ensure internal democracy, financial accountability in political parties. In the light of the above statement, critically analyze the steps taken by the government on electoral reforms. 250 words. Reference Insights on India. Introduction. Body. Need for reforms. No financial accountability. Opacity in donations. Lack of action against bribes. Unlimited corporate donations. Allowing foreign funding. Lack of transparency. Lack of internal democracy. No inter-party democracy. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Substantive. Regional parties. Left parties, steps taken by the government. Model code of conduct. Provision of none of the above, NOTA. Decriminalization of politics, Lily Thomas case. Menace of paid news. Voter verifiable paper audit trail, VAT. The SC mandated that 5 BATs, candidate information. Are these enough? Weak response. Lack of capacity. Increasing criminalization. Lawbreakers cannot become lawmakers, NOTA. Digital content. Women's representation, inclusive. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Discuss the provisions available to resolve the problem of criminalization of politics in India and also suggest steps that need to be taken to address it more effectively. 250 words. Reference, Hindustan Times. Why this question? The Supreme Court on Thursday will pronounce its verdict on steps to be taken to address the problem of criminalization of politics. In its judgment, the court is expected to decide whether directions can be issued to political parties to deny tickets to candidates with criminal background. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the available provisions to decriminalize politics in the country and the steps that are yet to be taken in this direction. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain what you understand by criminalization of politics. Body. Criminalization of politics means that the criminals entering the politics and contesting elections and even getting elected to the parliament and state legislature. Discuss the underlying causes of it. It takes place primarily because of the nexus between the criminals and some of the politicians. The criminals need the patronage of politicians occupying public offices to continue with their criminal activities, and the politicians need the money and muscle power that the criminals can offer to the politicians to win elections. In course of time, the nexus led the criminals themselves to contest elections. Conclusion. Present the case of India. Suggest key provisions that are yet to be put in place. Conclude that the need for cleansing politics of criminal influence has been flagged once again. The primary sacrifice at the altar of criminalization is that of governance, along with transparency and accountability. Expensive election campaigning favor candidates with strong financial background. Such candidates, when elected, seek to recover their expenses besides securing a corpus for the future election as quickly as possible, especially in the era of coalition governments with tenuous stability. Introduction. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Criminalization of politics in India. Reasons why criminalization of politics still exists in India. Corruption. Vote bank. Denial of justice and rule of law. Lack of governance. Scarcity of state capacity. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Provisions available to resolve the problem of criminalization of politics in India. RPA criminalization of politics. SC's rulings. Measures taken. Subscribe this YouTube channel. EC measures. Steps that need to be taken to address it more effectively. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. With electoral process in India is becoming increasingly advanced in terms of use of data, there is a need for a data protection framework to uphold the voters' informational autonomy. Elucidate. 250 words. Reference, The Hindu. Why this question? The author in the article discusses how with the electoral process tapping data in the country, a data protection framework must uphold a voter's informational autonomy. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the need for a strong data protection framework to uphold the information of the voter in the elections of the country. Directive. Elucidate, give a detailed account as to how and why it occurred, or what is the particular context. You must be defining key terms wherever appropriate, and substantiate with relevant associated facts. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the context of the question. Body. Explain first how in recent times Indian electoral system has advanced and upgraded itself in terms of use of data, but however it still has lacunae on the front of protection of this information, making the voters' information vulnerable. Discuss specific issues such as micro-targeting by the government. Take cues from the article and bring out the challenges involved. Comment on the front of privacy laws, need to enforce better framework. Conclusion. Conclude by suggesting solutions to address the above issues, assert upon the need to develop a robust framework to address the issue. Introduction. Body. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Dark side of social media platforms. Unregulated zone. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Need for regulation on social media. Way forward. Subscribe this YouTube channel. The Election Commission of India's ECI, new instrument to allow digitally mediated voting may prove to be a revolution in electoral reforms. Do you agree? Analyze. 250 words. Reference, Financial Express. Why this question? The Election Commission of India, ECI, is collaborating with the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, IITM, to work on technology that would allow voters to exercise their democratic right through a digital device. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss in detail the significance of such a revolutionary step to be taken in the electoral reforms of the country. Also explain the challenges involved and suggest through a way ahead. Directive. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the context of the question. Body. One can start the analysis by highlighting the need for such a reform in terms of technology. Explain. With facts such as in 2019, around 300 MN voters didn't cast their vote, close to about one-third of the total number of registered voters in the country, which is roughly around 900 MN. Discuss why we need the technology and what are its benefits. Digital voting will help overcome the problems of distance for NRI voters and hesitations over proxy on part of the Indian legislature. It could even allow migrant workers within the country to cast their votes in polls in their native Constituencies. Discuss what is the new technology like, take cues from the article and detail upon. Discuss challenges or concerns involved. Conclusion. Conclude by suggesting way forward. Introduction. Body. Digitally mediated voting can be a revolution in electoral reforms. NRIs, overcome the problems of distance for NRI voters. Migrant workers. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Drastically reduce need for security and other personnel deployment. Booths, voting machines, power backup, technology behind. Conclusion. Government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. Discuss the key features of National Mission on Quantum Technologies and Applications. NMQTA. 250 words. Reference, News on Air. Why this question? The government in its budget 2020 has announced a National Mission on Quantum Technologies and Applications, NMQTA, with a total budget outlay of 8,000 rupees crore for a period of 5 years to be implemented by the Department of Science and Technology, DST. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss in detail the key features of such a mission and its ultimate goal and contributions to science and technology of the country. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. First explain what you understand by quantum technology. Body. Quantum technology is based on the principles of quantum theory, which explains the nature of energy and matter on the atomic and subatomic level. Quantum computers store and process information using quantum two-level systems, quantum bits, or qubits, which unlike classical bits can be prepared in superposition states. Discuss the key features of the scheme. Explain that the implementation of the mission would help develop and bring quantum computers, secured communications through fiber and free space, quantum encryption and cryptanalysis and associated technologies within reach in the country. Conclusion. Conclude by reasserting the significance of such a move. Introduction. Quantum technology. Quantum technologies are rapidly developing globally with huge disruptive potential. The next generation transformative technologies to be explored under this mission include quantum computers and computing, quantum communication, quantum key distribution, encryption, cryptanalysis, quantum devices, quantum sensing, quantum materials, and quantum clocks. Quantum technology, quantum computers. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Objectives of National Mission on Quantum Technologies and Applications, NMQTA. Key features of the scheme. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclusion. Bring out the key highlights of the draft National Logistic Policy, analyze the benefits and challenges involved in implementing the same. 250 words. Reference, Live Mint. Why this question? The upcoming National Logistics Policy is expected to streamline rules and address supply-side constraints, leading to lower logistics costs and greater competitiveness for Indian products worldwide. Thus the question. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the key highlights of the draft National Logistic Policy and bring out the benefits and the challenges in detail. Directive. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain that India's logistics sector has remained fragmented and unregulated, despite its centrality to economic growth. Body. According to a logistics policy draft released by the Commerce Ministry in February 2019, the government will create a single point of reference for all logistics and trade facilitation matters, reducing logistics costs, which are now estimated at 13 to 14% of GDP, to 10%. Discuss the key features of the draft policy. Highlight the concerns/issues involved. Suggest the benefits that can be accrued from it. Conclusion. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Conclude by reasserting the significance of such a policy in addressing the gaps in the logistics sector of the country. Introduction. Key highlights of the draft National Logistic Policy. Startup Acceleration Fund by the Logistics Wing. The policy also states that it will focus on perishable commodities. Benefits of the draft National Logistic Policy. National Logistics E-Marketplace. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Data Analytics Center. E-commerce Logistics. Cross-regional trade on e-commerce platforms by enabling a seamless flow of goods. Leveraged in formulating seamless first and last mile connectivity. Challenges. Conclusion. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Discuss the suggestions given in the Economic Survey 2020 to boost India's economic growth. 250 words. Reference, PIB. Why this question? Recently the Economic Survey 2020-21 was released ahead of budget proposals issued in the Parliament. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the significant suggestions made by the Economic Survey 2020 to boost India's economic growth. Directive. Discuss. This is an all-encompassing directive. You have to debate on paper by going through the details of the issues concerned by examining each one of them. You have to give reasons for both for and against arguments. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain that the Economic Survey suggested that the government must use its strong mandate to deliver expeditiously on reforms which will enable the economy to strongly rebound in 2020-21. Body. Highlight that the survey said the economy is set to revive in the second half of 2019-20 mainly on account of 10 positive factors. Discuss the suggestions given in the survey in detail. There isn't much to deliberate. Students must list down the suggestions that are key to economic growth of the country. Conclusion. Conclude that the survey projected FY21 growth of 6 to 6.5% may prove to be optimistic and less backed by a strong fiscal stimulus in the budget and the meeting of investment targets specified in the National Infrastructure Pipeline, both by the central and state governments. Introduction. US $5 trillion goal by 2024 to 25. Body. Economic Survey, boosting India's economic growth. Ethical wealth. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Entrepreneurship. Pro-business vs pro-crony. Specializing exports. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Banking sector. NBFC sector. Privatization and wealth creation. Thalanomics. Conclusion. Subscribe this YouTube channel. There was hope that the recently proposed budget would increase allocations in various sectors, and in turn would trigger demand, but the numbers do not seem promising. Give your opinion and analyze. 250 words. Reference, Indian Express. Why this question? The 2020 budget was presented against the background of slowing economy, poor investment climate, declining consumption demand and stagnant exports. Thus the question aims to analyze if the budget proposed is promising on these fronts or not. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss critically the budget proposals and in what way they lack promises in terms triggering demand in the economy. Directive. Analyze. When asked to analyze, you have to examine methodically the structure or nature of the topic by separating it into component parts and present them as a whole in a summary. Structure of the answer. Introduction. Briefly explain the current case of the budget proposals. Body. The 2020 budget was presented against the background of slowing economy, poor investment climate, declining consumption demand and stagnant exports. The steady deceleration in growth, which registered at 4.5% in the second quarter of the current fiscal, the lowest in the last 26 quarters, presented a challenge as well as an opportunity. Monetary policy, by reducing the repo rate by 135 basis points since January last year, has traversed quite a distance. Discuss what the expectations were from the budget and why the budget somewhere failed to touch upon those points. Conclusion. Conclude that it seems the wait for a rescue of the slowing economy has become longer. However, proposals and policies need to be steered in the right direction to bring the economy back on wheels. Introduction. Body. Budgetary allocations in 2020 to 21. Budget remains unpromising. Fiscal deficit. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Major sectors, budget analysis. Infrastructure. Agriculture. Health. Social sector. Promising aspects of budget. Aspirational India. Agriculture. Blue economy, ours. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Kisan Rail. Kisan Newton. Dhanya. Lakshmi, PM Kusum. Health and wellness. Jan Aushadhi Kendra scheme. TB Hirgadesh Jeevika. Jal Jeevan mission. Sanitation, OTF plus. Education. National Police University. National Forensic Science University, study in India, economic development for all. Nirvik. Taxpayer charter. New economy. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Caring society. Antyodaya. Conclusion. Considering the manner in which public data are being stored and used by both the state and private entities, a comprehensive data protection act is the need of the hour. Comment. 250 words. Reference the Hindu. Introduction. Body. Data protection is the need of the hour. India has around 40 CR internet users and 25 CR social media users who spend significant time online. The KS Pataswamy case. He reasons are as follows. Data export. Data localization. User consent. Privacy breach. Subscribe this YouTube channel. Privacy laws. Data ownership. Conclusion. India needs more podiums like the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition to democratize innovation for ideas with great prospective societal impact. Comment. 250 words. Reference, Financial Express. Why this question? The article discusses in detail the fact that India needs more platforms like the National Bio-Entrepreneurship Competition, which democratizes innovation access for ideas with large potential societal impact. Key demand of the question. The answer must discuss the significance of